Hello everyone, welcome to our class. My name is Ko Chen Lee. In today's sections, we will talk about managing registry. This is today's outline. We will start with the introductions of registries, then look at the registry structures and root keys. And also we will introduce registry data and how they work. Last but not least, how to backup, restore, and maintain registry. Everyone who accesses a computer, whether in a work group or on a domain, at one time or another, has worked with the Windows registry, whether the person realizes it or not. Whenever you log on, your user preferences are read from the registry. Whenever you make changes to the system configurations, install applications or hardware, or make other changes to the working environment, the changes are stored in the registry. Whenever you uninstall hardware, applications, or system components, these changes are recorded in the registry as well. The registry is the central repository for configuration information in Microsoft Windows. So you should know the types of data the registry works with, what type of data is stored where, and how to make changes if necessary. So with this in mind, let's look at how the registry works and how you can work with it. The registry is written as a binary database with the information organized in a hierarchy. Anytime the Windows operating system must obtain system default values or information about your preferences, it obtains this information from the registry. Anytime you install programs or make changes in control panel, these changes usually are returned to the registry. The registry's importance is that it stores most of the system's state. If you make preference and setting changes to a system, these changes are stored in the registry. Well, in addition to storing settings that you have made, the registry stores settings that the operating system makes as well. When you install Windows Server 2008, the setup choices you make are used to build the initial registry database. And setup modifies the registry whenever you add or remove hardware from a system. Unlike previous releases of Windows, however, and the Windows Server 2008 don't always store application settings directly in the registry, and may in fact read some settings from a user's profile. And this behavior is new and occurs because of user account control, UAC. Of the many features UAC implements, there are two key features that change the way Windows installs and runs applications. Application run labels and application virtualization. To support run labels and virtualizations, all applications that run on Windows Server 2008 have a security token. The security code tokens reflect the label of privileges required to run the application. Applications written for Windows Server 2008 can have either an administrator token or a standard user token. Applications with administrator tokens require elevated privileges to run and perform core tasks. And many administrative tools are little more than friendly user interfaces for managing the registry, especially when it comes to control panel. So, rather than having you work directly with a particular area of the registry, Microsoft provides tools that you can use to make the necessary changes safely and securely. Use these tools. Let's not lay up for. As you can see, nearly everything you do with the operating system affects the registry in one way or another. That's why it is so important to understand what the registry is used for, how you can work with it, how you can secure it, and how you can maintain it. The registry is first a database. Like any other database, the registry is designed for information storage and retrieval. Any registry value entries can be identified by specifying the path to its location. The registry's actual physical structure is separate from the way registry information is represented. Some of the registry's information is increased dynamically based on the system's hardware configuration at startup and doesn't exist until it is created. For the most part, however, the registry is stored in persistent form on disk and read from a set of files called heaps. Heaps are binary files that represent a grouping of keys and values. At the top of the registry hierarchy are the root keys. Each root key contains several subkeys, which contain other subkeys and value entries. The names of value entries must be unique within the associated subkey, and the value entries correspond to specific configuration parameters. The settings of those configuration parameters are the values stored in the value entry. And each value has an associated data type that controls the type of data it can store. When reading about the registry in various sources, you might see references to the following subtrees. A subtree is a name for the tree of keys and values stemming from a root key down the registry hierarchy. In documentation, you often see root keys referred to as subtrees. Keys. Technically, root keys are the top of the registry hierarchy, and everything below a root key is either a subkey or a value entry. And values. And a value entries comprise three parts: a name, a data type, and a value. The name identifies the configuration setting. The data type identifies the format for the data. And the value is the actual data within the entry. And the registry is organized into a hierarchy of keys, subkeys, and value entries. The root keys are at the top of the hierarchy, and from the primary branches or subtrees of registry information. And there are two physical root keys, H key local machine and H key users. And these physical root keys are associated with actual files stored on the disk and are divided into additional logical groupings of registry information. As shown in the slide, the logical groupings are simply subsets of information gathered from H key local machine and H key users. Now that you know more about the registry's structures, let's take a look at the actual data within the registry. Understanding how registry data is stored and used is just as important as understand the registry structure. Where registry data comes from, as mentioned previously, some registry data is created dynamically during startup of the operating system, and some is stored on disk, so it can be used each time you boot a computer. The dynamically created data is volatile, meaning that when you shut down the system, it is gone. On the other hand, registry data stored on the disk is persistent. When you shut down the system, this registry data remains on disk and is available the next time you boot the system. And to help safeguard the systems and ensure that one section of bad data doesn't cause the whole registry to fail to load, Windows Server 2008 has several built-up redundancies and fail-safes. For starters, the registry isn't written to a single file. Instead, it is written to a set of files called hives. There are 6 main types of hives, each representing a group of keys and values. Default, which corresponds to H key users /default subkey. SAM, which corresponds to the H key local machine /SAM subkey. And security, which corresponds to H key local machine /security subkey. And software, which corresponds to the H key local machine software subkey. And system, which corresponds to H key local machine system subkey. The remaining hive files are stored in the individual user profile directories with the default name of antuser.dat. When you work your way down to the lowest level of the registry, and you see the actual value entries, each value entry has a name, a data type, and a value associated with it. The data types defined include the following: reg binary, and raw binary data without any formatting or parsing. And you can view binary data in several forms, including standard binary and hexadecimal. And reg dword, a binary data type in which 32 integer values are stored as 4-byte length values in hexadecimal. And reg dword is often used to track values that can be incremented, 4-byte status codes or Boolean flags. And reg qword, a binary data type in which 64 bits integer values are stored as 8-byte length values in hexadecimal. And reg keywords is often used to track large values that can be incremented, and 8-byte status codes or Boolean flags, and reg SZ, a fixed length string of Unicode characters. Reg SZ is used to store values that are meant to be read by users and can be includes names, descriptions, and so on, as well as stored file system paths. And reg expand SZ, a variable length strings that can include environment in variables that are to be expanded when the data is read by the operating systems and its components or services, as well as installed applications. And reg multi-SZ, a multiple parameter strings that can be used to store multiple string values in a single entry. And reg full resource descriptors, a value with encoded resource descriptors, such as a list of resources used by a device driver or a hardware component. And Windows Server 2008 provides several tools for working with the registry. The main tool, of course, is Registry Editor, which you start by typing regedit or regedit32 at the command line or in the Run dialog box. Another tool for working with the registry is the reg command, and both tools can be used to view and manage the registry. And searching the registries, one of the common tasks you will want to perform in Registry Editor is to search for a particular key. And you can search for keys, values, and data entries using the Find options on the Edit menu. And when you want to work with keys and values in the registry, you typically are working with the subkeys of a particular key. And this allows you to add a subkey and defines its values, and to remove subkeys and their values. And modifying values. The most common change you will make to the registry is to modify an existing value. For example, a knowledge base article might recommend that you change your value from 0 to 1 to enable a certain feature in Windows Server 2008, or from 1 to 0 to disable it. And adding keys and values, as noted previously, and you can add or remove keys in most areas of the registry. The exceptions pertains to the root nodes, the root keys, and the area of the registry where permissions prohibit modifications. And removing keys and values. And removing keys and values from the registry is easy, but should never be done without careful forethought to the possible consequences. Modifying the registry of a remote machines. And you can modify the registry of remote computers without having to log on locally. In most cases, all you must do is type the name of the remote computer, and you might need to enter the username and password of a user account, and importing and exporting registry data. And sometimes you might find that it is necessary or useful to copy all or part of the registry to a file. By using registry editors, it is fairly easy to import or export registry data. When you export data, you create a direct file, and that contains the designated registry data. And this registry file is a script that can then be loaded back into the registry of this or any other computer by importing it. And just as you sometimes must import or export registry data, and you will sometimes need to work with individual HIVE files. And here, you will load the user's nt-user.dat file into registry editors and then make the necessary changes. Another reason for doing this would be to change a particular part of the registry on a remote system. When you are finished working with a HIVE, you should unload it to clear it out of memory. Unloading the HIVE doesn't save the changes you have made. As with any modifications to the registry, your changes are applied automatically without the need to save them. And working with the registry from the command line, if you want to work with the registry from the command line, and you can do so using reg command. And reg is run using the permissions of the current users and can be used to access the registry on both local and remote systems. And reg has different subcommands for performing various registry tasks. And these commands are shown in the slide. And for example, reg add adds a new subkey or values entries to a registry reg compares the registry subkeys or value entries. And reg copies a registry entries to a specified key path on a local or remote system. And backing up and restoring the registry normally isn't done from within registry editor. However, either way, you have an effective means to minimize downtimes and ensure that the system can be recovered if the registry becomes corrupted. And you can make a backup of the entire registry very easily at the command line. And simply type regedit/e save file, where save files is the complete file path to the save locations for the registry data. And following this, you could save a copy of the registry. And you can also easily make backups of individual root keys. And to do this, you use reg save. Type reg save followed by the abbreviated names of the root keys you want to save and the file name to use. In Windows Server 2008, you create a system state backup to help you recover the registry and get the system to a bootable state. The system state backup includes essential system files needed to recover the local system as well as registry data. The fastest and the easiest way to do so is to use wp-admins, the command line counterparts to Windows Server backup. And maintaining the registry is a database. And like any other database, it works best when it is optimized. And one way to uninstall components, services, and applications is to use the uninstall or change the program utility in control panel. At the Microsoft download centers on the web, you will find a download package for the Windows Installer Cleanup utility. This download package includes several files as well as a helper application called Windows Installer Zappers. The Windows Installer cleans up utility called Windows Installer Zappers to perform cleanup operations on the Windows Installer configuration management information. And using the Windows Installer Cleanup utility, Windows Installer Cleanup utility removes registry settings for applications that were installed using the Windows installer. It is most useful for cleaning up registry remnants of applications that were partially uninstalled or whose uninstall failed. And using the Windows Installer Zappers, the Windows Installer Zappers is an advanced command line utility for removing registry settings for applications that were installed using the Windows installers. Like the Windows installers cleanup utility, it can be used to clean up registry settings for applications that were particularly uninstalled or for which the uninstalled failed, as well as applications that cannot be uninstalled or reinstalled because of partial or damaged settings in the registry. Additionally, it can be used to remove registry settings related to failed installations or failed rollbacks of installations. If it can also be used to correct values related to multiple instances of a setup program running simultaneously and in cases when the setup program won't run. And the registry is a critical area of the operating systems. It has some limited built-in security to reduce the risk of settings being changed or deleted. And because of this, you might want to set tighter access control than the default permissions. And you can do this from within the registry, preventing access to the registry utilities for other systems or when it isn't practically to prevent users from logging on locally to a server. And you can configure the permissions under regedit.exe and reg.exe so that they are more secure. And you can also remove registry editors and the reg command from our systems. But this can introduce other problems and make managing the system more difficult, especially if you also prevent remote access to the registry. And applying permissions to the registry keys. And keys within the registry have access permissions as well. Using the right security template locks down access to the registry for you, and you won't have to worry about making inadvertent changes that will prevent systems from booting or applications from running. And controlling remote registry access. And hackers and unauthorized users can attempt to access a system's registry remotely, just like you do. If you want to be sure they are kept out of the registry, and you can prevent remote registry access. And one way remote access to the system's registry can be controlled is through the registry key shown in the slide. And if you want to limit remote access to the registry, you can start by changing the permissions on this key. And in local security policy, and you can use security options to enable or disable remote registry access. With Windows Server 2008, 2 new security settings are provided for this purpose. Network access, remotely accessible registry paths, network access. Remotely accessible registry paths and subpaths. These security settings determine which registry paths and subpaths can be accessed over the network, regardless of the users or groups listed in the Access Control List, ACL, of the WinRAC registry key. Auditing registry access and access to a registry can be audited, as can access to files and other areas of the operating systems. And auditing allows you to track which users access the registry and what they are doing. And however, you usually limited what you audit to only the essentials to reduce the amount of data that is returned to the security logs, and to reduce the resource burdens of the affected server. And before you can enable auditing of the registry, you must enable the auditing functions on the systems you are working with. And you can do this either through the server's local policy or through the appropriate group policy object.